The horse's reaction says it all. This tiny baby goat had been searching for his mother all morning, crying softly as he wandered around the quiet farm. But no matter how many times he called, nobody came running. He was too young to understand what had happened. He only knew that he was alone, frightened, and desperately looking for someone who would make him feel safe. Then, across the pasture, he saw a large chestnut-brown horse standing peacefully near a wooden fence. The little goat stopped walking and stared at her. Something about the horse's calm presence made him feel different. He slowly took one step toward her, then another, and then another. The horse noticed him and turned her head. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Then the baby goat walked right up to the horse's front leg and pressed his tiny body against her. He had made his decision. In his little mind, this horse was his mother now. The horse looked down at him with a confused expression, as if she couldn't understand why this tiny animal was suddenly following her. She lowered her head and gently sniffed him. The baby goat didn't move. Instead, he closed his eyes and leaned closer. The farmer, watching from across the pasture, couldn't believe what he was seeing. He had never seen the goat trust another animal so quickly. The horse could have walked away, but she didn't. She simply stood there and let the little goat stay. When she finally started walking, the baby goat followed. When she stopped, he stopped. When she drank water, he stood beside her. And when she rested beneath the shade of the barn, the little goat curled up next to her legs. It looked like he had found the one thing he had been searching for all day: safety. But what happened over the next few days was even more surprising. The horse didn't just allow the baby goat to follow her, she began watching over him. She would slow down whenever his tiny legs struggled to keep up. If he wandered too far, she would turn her head and wait. If something startled him, she would stand between him and the noise. And every night, when the farm became quiet, the little goat would sleep beside her. The farmer started calling him Rusty because of the warm brown patches on his coat. But no matter what name the farmer called him, Rusty seemed to have only one name for the horse: Mom. One morning, the farmer opened the barn door and found Rusty asleep against the horse's front leg. The horse was standing completely still, almost as if she knew that moving would wake him. The farmer whispered, "You really have adopted this little guy, haven't you?" The horse slowly lowered her head and looked at the sleeping goat. She didn't need to answer. Her actions said everything. Later that morning, Rusty woke up and immediately looked for her. The moment he saw the horse, his tiny tail began to wag. He stood up and followed her outside. The horse walked toward the pasture, and Rusty followed closely behind. He was still learning how to walk properly, so sometimes he stumbled in the grass. Every time he fell, the horse stopped and waited. She never rushed him. She simply stood there until he caught up. The farmer watched from a distance and smiled. "She waits for him every time," he said quietly, like she knows he's just a baby. But one afternoon, something happened that made the farmer realize just how strong their bond had become. Rusty noticed a butterfly near the fence and became curious. He slowly followed it farther and farther away from the horse. He didn't realize how far he had wandered. The horse looked around and suddenly noticed that Rusty was gone. She lifted her head and began searching the pasture. Then she saw him near the far fence. She walked toward him. Rusty looked back and saw her coming. Instead of running away, he ran straight toward her. His little legs moved as fast as they could. When he reached her, he pressed himself against her front leg. The horse gently lowered her head and touched his back with her nose. The farmer stood nearby and realized that this was more than a strange friendship. The horse was becoming the little goat's safe place. A few days later, another moment made the bond even clearer. A loud farm machine started up near the pasture. The sudden noise frightened Rusty. His ears went back and he ran straight toward the horse. He hid behind her legs. The horse immediately turned toward the noise and stood between Rusty and the machine. She didn't run. She didn't panic. She simply stood there until the sound faded away. Rusty slowly came out from behind her and looked up at her. The farmer whispered, "You're protecting him." The horse gently nudged the baby goat, almost as if she was saying, "You're safe." That evening, the farmer brought fresh food and water to the barn. Rusty ate, drank, and then walked straight back to the horse. He didn't want to sleep anywhere else. He curled up beside her and closed his eyes. The horse remained standing nearby, watching over him. The farmer turned off the barn light and walked away, leaving the two animals together. The next morning, Rusty was stronger. He began running around the pasture, jumping through the grass and playing with small sticks. But whenever he got tired, he always returned to the horse. It was like she was his home base. He could explore the world because he knew where to come back. And the horse always led him. As the weeks passed, Rusty grew bigger and more confident. He didn't need the horse every second anymore, but he still followed her. Sometimes he would run ahead, then turn around just to make sure she was still there. Sometimes he would stand beside her quietly while she grazed, and sometimes, for no reason at all, he would walk over and gently rest his head against her leg. The horse would lower her head and touch him with her nose. Their relationship had become part of everyday life on the farm. Everyone knew that if they saw the horse, the little goat probably wasn't far away. One evening, the farmer sat near the pasture and watched the two animals as the sun began to set. The sky turned golden, the grass moved gently in the wind, and the farm became quiet. Rusty walked toward the horse and stopped beside her. He looked up at her for a few seconds, then rested his head against her front leg. The horse lowered her head and gently touched his back. The farmer smiled. He thought about how different these two animals were. One was small, one was huge. One was a goat, one was a horse. They didn't look alike, sound alike, or even belong to the same family. But somehow, they understood each other perfectly. The little goat had been looking for his mother and he never found her. But when he needed someone most, another animal chose to stay. And maybe that's what family really means. It isn't always about blood. It isn't always about being the same. Sometimes family is the one who notices that you're scared and stays beside you. It's the one who waits when you're too slow. It's the one who stands between you and danger. It's the one who lets you sleep safely beside them when the world feels too big. The farmer looked at Rusty and the horse one last time as the sun disappeared behind the barn. "You found your family," he whispered. Rusty lifted his head, looked at the horse, and then gently leaned against her again. The horse didn't move away, she simply stayed. And that was all the little goat had wanted from the beginning. Someone who would stay. Someone he could trust. Someone who made him feel safe. The horse may never have understood that Rusty thought she was his mother, but somehow her reaction said everything. She didn't push him away. She didn't leave him behind. She simply accepted him. And sometimes, the most beautiful friendships begin when two completely different hearts realize they don't have to be alone anymore.